You are very welcome along to this live stream on the LinkedIn channel that I run myself, Alex Gibson, and also on the YouTube channel for Arvr Innovate. This is the second in our previews of what's coming up at Arvr Innovate 2024. It's this day week, folks, so if you haven't got your tickets, get along there shortly. We'll be putting up a discount code during this webinar as well, so just you might be able to grab that, and that would be interesting for you as well. Delighted to welcome Monica Arvr. Thanks so much for joining us today, Monica.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
So, Monica, you are our keynote speaker in the morning session. You're going to be talking about how AI and immersive technology interface, particularly in the context of the education space, which really interests me, obviously, as an educator. And you've a good pedigree in that area, I think it's fair to say. We'll talk about your current role in a moment, but previously you were the head of immersive learning at Meta. Tell us a little bit about what that role entailed.
Yeah, sure. And I think spent my entire career trying to figure out how to use technology to make learning more engaging, more personalized. And so went from classroom teacher to understanding that I needed to do something to make it a little bit more in the vein that would unlock curiosity and creativity and connection. So brought me to the planetarium space, which I didn't realize at the time was actually the precursor to VR. And I got to see the opportunities that really unlocked for learners. And so knowing that I needed to scale, it pushed me into the tech industry. I actually started out first at Amazon, where we were trying to figure out how to use traditional platform-based learning, which was almost the equivalent of putting PDFs online, and how to integrate objects that we could rotate, manipulate, and understand and learn through inquiry. Which again, I felt it was a little bit rigid and still closed off because the tools we had at the time were like GeoGebra and very early tools, and so we couldn't quite push those boundaries. So when I got the opportunity to go over to Facebook, was able to try VR for the first time. And this was very, very early days VR, but I think the second I put the headset on, I knew that it was a medium that we really needed to start to bring this new way of learning into the world. And so had an incredible time, got to kind of work with all the different teams across the initiatives, trying to do the same thing and taking it from this like Gear VR type of experience, 3 degrees of freedom. There weren't even controls in the very early days, but working on what kind of content would actually really help people learn through exploration and offer them some of that. And we had to, think about new ways. We couldn't curate experiences anymore the way you do with an instructional video. People could look anywhere they wanted. They could interact with objects in the way that they felt they wanted to. And so it really transformed how we built content and then how we expected the user to interface with that and to learn with it. But of course, early studies right from the beginning, even when it wasn't 6 degrees of freedom yet, really started to show the opportunities and capabilities of just sort of that engagement and retention that we know VR can unlock. So of course, from there, the dream became, how do I build the whole ecosystem out? It's not just about content creation. It's really about training the next generation of creators so that they can monetize, so we can get a lot more content out there. Working hand in hand as the technology started to improve and we unlocked more functionality. And then I think, the integration piece is always going to be really key, which is why that whole ecosystem mattered. That was really hard. It's still very, very hard. And so it was interesting sitting in a place where we were more focused on the production of the hardware and the content we could create really for kind of like the general consumer to how do we actually get this into learning environments. And so coming over to Imperial College, where I'm now the executive director of the Idea Lab, that's one of the challenges of this technology is finally mature enough. There's enough content. We can trust that it will deliver what we need to. Of course, it's still evolving, but to truly bring it into a space where we can help train the next generation of leaders, especially in a time when everything's, we're in a rapid phase of innovation. And so the best thing we can do is train people to be adaptable and get the problem solving skills and those communication skills for whatever might be coming down the road in our future. And so it's allowing me to bring together all that I brought from Meta, but to truly integrate it and start to use it. And of course, when Gen AI came, it supercharged all the capabilities that we were struggling with, not only in the VR space, but it became an immediate opportunity to help create personalized experiences. And so when you combine the two technologies, we now can learn in a much more human way with just natural language and voice and hands and eye tracking. And that allows us to go from a very rigid structure and one directional flow of content to just an entirely new space that we can start to explore. So coming and sitting in a place where it is connected to higher education, but it is a lab where we are creating online degree programs, but also offering a large space to partner with other industries and to innovate and to test and pilot and understand where we're going to start to move this.
And do you think that a lot of the focus for industry has been around hard skills? I'm thinking of applications in terms of, for example, where there's health and safety risk. We've seen uptake. We've seen it in simulations around military context. What interests me is the soft skills space and the opportunity. I mean, it's probably harder for people to necessarily see, if I can use that crude term, the business case initially. But to me, there's a really exciting space opening up, particularly as you've hinted there a moment ago in terms of what the AI technology can bring to bear in terms of creating really personalized educational experiences in a 3D domain, which brings a completely new dimension.
It does. And actually, we happened upon this accidentally in the very early days at Meta. We knew, just like you said, that the more experience-based type of learning was, of course, going to be great in virtual reality, whether it was training and getting your fidelity in a place where you had confidence and your body could do the surgical training and all those things we knew, the exploration with going to space and things that were too dangerous or otherwise impossible to get to. And we kind of by accident realized it was an incredible empathy generator. Because your brain gets tricked into thinking you're there. And so you feel like you're walking in somebody else's shoes, or you get transported to certain scenarios that you might not have lived as a first person experience, but your brain still connects to it that way. So that was one of those strange aha moments where you're like, we have an opportunity to teach some of the skills that historically have been very, very challenging to teach. Not because we didn't want to, we just didn't have the tools to do it very well, especially at scale. So AI coming in. And now one of the things we're really focused on is how do we create these simulations where you can have multiple characters sitting across from you, AI generated characters who are all trained to have different personalities or personas, and you can present whatever it is you're trying to deliver, and they can give you that feedback. That's something we couldn't do before. Even when we used to bring real humans in to do those simulations, it was a bit awkward, right? And so that role playing was always like people, you can practice all you want. Certain things like giving a pitch to VC firms, creating public speaking talks. There are a lot of things we can practice on our own and perfect them. But when we do them nervous in front of audiences or in places where it counts, all the chemistry in your body changes. It's actually very hard to deliver that. You also don't know what you don't know. And so putting people in simulations where they can feel some of those nerves and emotions coming, but then also have the people on the other side ask them questions or react differently. Even if it's something like for managers, can we help create simulations for giving feedback where sometimes the person on the other side breaks down, right? Or doesn't want to talk or gets angry. So you can start to prepare what it actually feels like to be in those conversations. And it's, we used to train it with sort of more of that like tree branched kind of AI, but your brain instantly knew that it wasn't quite right because it was like, oh, I can tell this is programmed. I think that the newer forms of AI and really being trained on information that we as universities have been able to put research behind it, and we have these incredible, brilliant professors behind it. It offers a whole dialogue that it's like, it's not perfect yet. We're obviously still building and piloting it, but just the AI-driven assistance we've been able to connect to courses. It's like an extension of the professor that you have at your house whenever you need access to someone to brainstorm with or help study with or ask questions.
It's just amazing. It's just fantastic what's coming. I know in my university, I've been leading on projects where with some of my team on helping students build personal presentation skills training. And, what you said there really resonates with me. I think it's also the scale thing. When we give feedback and doing presentations, typically the students, they don't get another chance to make a presentation maybe to the end of the next semester. The time lag is so great. Whereas I think that this is the other exciting part, that it allows lecturers to be, it's an adjunct to what they do. It's not necessarily replacing it, but it's allowing, the student to replicate a presentation multiple times. And gamification, of course, we didn't talk directly about, but I think particularly in primary and secondary schools, and arguably even in university, if you can gamify the experience, I think that really adds a lot as well.
Oh yeah, we're humans. We love that. And you touched on something interesting too, sort of having that that AI avatar extension of a professor, what we have found, I mean, we've only done a couple of pilots, so there's a lot more research to be done there, but students were asking it questions they thought were too stupid to ask in the class. And that's an
really
incredible point to unlock that learning that often gets blocked at different times. Or on the other end of the spectrum, those that were just like fueled by their curiosity and wanted to keep asking 100 questions, they often get shut down in class because otherwise they dominate. They could go home and they could talk to it. And so that idea of like that brainstorming, that going down pathways became, really apparent. And I think that's something that we haven't been able to do unless you had access to a personal tutor. That's a very hard thing to help students have access to. So that's important. The simulation's hugely important. I'm very excited for that space and virtual avatars and humans and what that means to interact. But also there are other components that like giving feedback, right? When you are a professor or a TA and you're grading a lot of papers, you can't always give all the in-depth feedback that you want. But AI is actually really good at saying, these are 5 things you did really well. Here are 5 things you could improve on. And because it's AI, you can then talk to it and work through it until you actually understand the feedback that has been given to you and improve it. So it's a much more dynamic way to, after you've worked really, really hard on this paper or project, to not just drop it off, get the grade and put it away, but to continue that learning journey with it. And of course, just foundationally, all the way that we handle all the data. I mean, look at all the data universities have right now. Everything from pandemic on has been recorded. Every lecture, all the reading materials, any book that's ever been written has been turned into a PDF. We have these golden sets of data on all the different courses. And so I'm trying really hard to figure out how we responsibly manage that and then use it to create more efficient pathways to creating these lessons and delivery and assessment for students. And so there's really a whole new AI system that is starting to form, and we're still kind of piloting these different pieces out in hopes of creating that learning journey that truly is probably the first foundational piece of a lifelong learning journey, where these AI assistants continue to sweep the content you're learning, continue to understand how you learn, and they bring it with you all the way through. So even when you leave business school, you still have access to all of that, when in the real world, you're suddenly faced with negotiations or something that you might have done 6 years ago in the course.
That's a fascinating example. And look, we'll get a chance to tease it out in Dublin. I hadn't even begun to talk about that, begin to think about that, but it's fascinating, that idea that your university stays with you, not just in a networking event once a year over drinks where they're looking for money from you, let's be honest about it, but in fact,
that will still happen too.
Of course it will, but they'll still be with you, and I love that idea. I think that's really interesting. And who knows, maybe universities will use that to trade on a competitive advantage. You join our 4-year degree or 2-year degree, but we're with you throughout the rest of your career. I really like that idea. So much we could talk about. I hope you haven't given all the good stuff, Monica. I know you haven't. People will have to come along to the conference to hear a little bit more and interact with you. I know you're doing the morning session at 10:40. I did mention that there's a discount code for those who've stuck with us during this webinar this morning. So if you use that code there, folks, you'll get a 30% discount off any of the tickets that are available, with the exception of the academic rate, which is an extraordinarily good rate anyway, because we do believe in maximizing the number of academics into the room. Monica, thanks so much for joining us today. Looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday, the 8th of May in the RDS in Dublin. I know it's your first visit to Ireland as well, so we're going to show you a good welcome. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. Bye-bye, everybody.
All right. Bye.